Pamela Colman Smith, forgotten black lesbian artist and occultist, or was she? There's more mythology around Pamela Colman Smith than a Greek tragedy. So who was she really? Well, let's find out. Firstly, was she black? Well, she was born in London in 1878 and she was the daughter of Charles Smith and Corinne Colman Smith. Both her parents had come from middle to upper class prominent white American families. Her paternal grandfather was Cyrus Porter Smith, a former Brooklyn mayor, and her mother was the sister of the painter and designer Samuel Coleman. As a child, Pamela lived for a time in Jamaica where her father took a job out there, and this is where the myth of her being black or mixed ethnicity started. When she settled in England, Pamela wrote books about Jamaican culture and performed African folk tales wearing traditional costumes and speaking in patois. She appropriated Jamaican culture based on her lived experience of it. Nowadays, of course, this is very problematic. Cultural and racial appropriation. And I hesitate to call her act minstrel, but I suppose really in essence it was. Yes, she championed black and African culture at a time when doing something like that as a white woman of her class was very controversial and potentially dangerous. But essentially she wasn't black. She was a member of the white upper class. So it's important to dispel this myth first. Pamela performed for the artistic and literary elites who demanded anything exotic, and representations of colonial savages were hugely popular at that time. So as a woman, she did have to live to some degree by her wits and her skills. She was a skilled storyteller and performer, so I think, we can't entirely blame her for going down this route to make money. So was she an artist? Well, yes, of course she was. This we can't dispute. She's best known for illustrating the Rider-Waite Smith tarot deck. She was a very successful artist at the turn of the century, and there's many other things that she did. She studied art in Brooklyn, and there she developed her very distinctive visionary style. At the age of 21, she became orphaned and moved to London, where she took up work as an illustrator and a theatrical designer. And she was very quickly absorbed into the bohemian elite in London. So the likes of Ellen Terry, Bram Stoker and Henry Irving all took her under their wing. Terry apparently gave her the nickname she kept all her life, Pixie, and she travelled around the country with them as she was part of the Lyceum Theatre Group, working on very high-profile illustration projects. So Pamela was a feminist and an entrepreneur, and she set up her own literary magazine, which was called The Green Sheaf, and she branched into her own press as well. She published poems, fairy tales and stories by women writers, and she even made artwork for the suffrage cause, as she was an avid supporter. And the image that I've shown there was behind you is actually from the Suffrage Atelier, and it's entitled What a Woman May Be and Yet Not Have the Vote. Although it's unsigned, it has been attributed to Smith due to the style. So in 1907, Alfred Stieglitz, a prominent photographer and gallery owner, showcased Pamela's work in his galleries several times, and she had famous collectors of her work, including the famous actor William Gillette. So was Pamela an occultist? Well, it's unclear, actually, whether she was a devoted occultist or that she just used this connection to find friends in high places. She had a good friend in William Butler Yeats who introduced her to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was an occult secret society made up of upper-class bohemians and elites, famously, of course, Aleister Crowley being among them. And there she met Arthur Edward Waite, and he asked her to design a tarot deck published by Rider and Sons, which became the universally recognised Rider-Waite, now Smith is added, deck. Smith took 6 months to complete the 78 drawings, which are so distinctive that, of course, when many people think of the tarot, it's her images that come to mind immediately. Pamela modelled some of the designs on portraits of her friends. For example, the Queen of Wands card was based on the actor Ellen Terry, and the World card was based on Florence Farr. Now, she didn't make much money from this at the time. She was paid a flat rate, and Waite took all the credit. Surprise, surprise. But the tarot deck was the last commercially successful work of Pamela's, sadly, because as taste changed, she found her work had very little appeal anymore. So in 1911, she converts to Catholicism, and ever the entrepreneur and faced with dwindling finances, she sets up a holiday home for Catholic priests in Cornwall on the Lizard Peninsula. The new venture didn't make her as much money as she'd previously enjoyed, however, and she was unable to keep it going, so she moved to Exeter and then finally Bude in the 1940s, and she died in 1951 in severe debt. Her possessions were auctioned off to pay for her funeral, and she was buried in an unmarked and now long-lost grave. An obscure and sad end for such a talented and unusual person, I think. But to this day, people go in search for Pamela's grave. She's become a latter-day mystic or enigma for magic seekers. And there behind me, there you can see the Rider-Waite-Smith deck Major Arcana, which, of course, is very recognisable to those who know tarot. So was Pamela Colman Smith gay? Well, she never married and she was never publicly linked to any man. And back in those days, of course, this would have aroused some suspicion. She also shared her home in Cornwall with her widowed housekeeper, Nora Lake. But there's no evidence to suggest that they were anything more than housemates. And even if they were, I think they would have been kept very hush-hush back in those days. But this is just another part of her mystique and aura. It's only recently, really, that Pamela Colman Smith is getting the attention and recognition that she deserves. The tarot deck that made her posthumously famous has been renamed by many, including myself, as the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, rather than just the Rider-Waite deck. Pamela's name and huge contribution when this tarot deck first came out was not acknowledged at all. Even to this day, many people still refer to it only as Rider-Waite, although we're hoping that that will change as more people become aware of Colman Smith. So there you have it. We have no proof she was gay, she probably wasn't massively into the occult, and she definitely wasn't a woman of colour, but she was, of course, a woman who was extremely talented and brought a lot of colour to the world, and I think it's fair to say that. So I hope you enjoyed this month's herstory. Now, there is a blog version of this, which you can read on my website. I'll post the link below. You can also like, share and comment if you like. And also, just on the subject of tarot, if you are interested in tarot and would like to get a reading, just a reminder that I am collaborating this month and next month, September, with Mercury Tarot. So when you book one of my tours, you can get 20% off a reading with Mercury Tarot, which is a really, really good deal. She's an excellent, very professional, very experienced reader. And likewise, if you book a reading with her, you can also get 20% off one of my tours as well. So you can either head over to her website or head over to mine. I will post the links below for that. So thank you very much. And until next month, enjoy.